So the other day we had a workshop at my workplace and the topic was persuasion. Half the people, they didn't know the answer for it. Half the people, even if they are pursuing their goals rightly, but they didn't know how to explain. So today we are talking about persuasion at work. So Shymali, please tell us about
what is persuasion, by the way? Is it just communication, good communication?
There's a lot more to that. It's how effectively I'm able to get a buy-in to my ideas, yet at the same time able to take people along with me. So it's a huge mixture of the way we speak. Then I would say under the iceberg, what's happening, how much do I really understand the nuances of people I'm working with, what are the kind of networks I'm making. So it's a huge science behind it.
So this is a question now that you said it's a science. Is persuasion an art or a science? Because you see these slick, when you think of persuasion, who do you think of? Na? Ye mere ko pencil bech ke dikhao. Or you think of these slick sales guys. But yes, in everyday life, even as women, right, when we are negotiating our life daily, we're trying to persuade either our husbands, our children, or whatever.
So I kind of connect you to, when somebody comes and sell a pencil, we say get lost. Either you say in a very polite way or you just say okay. And so selling something in a very scientific way or in a very methodical way, that is persuasion, I think. When I don't know that I'm being persuaded.
It's getting a buy. I won't use the word selling because, as you rightly said, the whole idea of the slick person trying to sell you something down your throat comes into mind. But it's really how do I get a buy-in? But at the same time, it's just not my victory. So an effective persuader would know what is the way in which I can also take people along.
So is it creating a win-win situation? And are there some tips of how we can become more persuasive?
Sure. Absolutely. So it is definitely creating a win-win. So how do we do it? There are three things that I like to talk about. One is, and this is based on Aristotle's work, ETHOS. What do we understand by my personal credibility? Why should you listen to me? So what are some of the signals I am emanating, I'm giving as a person? So I'll talk a little more about it. The second is logos. So as I'm talking to you right now, is it only my thought I'm thinking about, or I'm able to think about what does Sukirti want? What does Meeta want? And accordingly understand you and try to pitch my ideas, which will also meet your mental needs. So ability to gauge, ask the right questions.
Which is very important because a lot of times you see people are just not even, they want to talk but they don't want to listen.
Yeah, it's a one-way communication.
And the third is, when you go and watch a movie, what stays with you? Dil, right? The heart. So my ability to be vulnerable so that it touches people's heart, because often we can engage a person's mind, but the moment I've engaged somebody's heart, the ability to get through becomes that much faster, that much quicker. So ethos, pathos, logos.
Okay. So is this art or science is easy to learn? How much time does it take, or does it that everybody doesn't learn it also?
Yeah, there are definitely people, at least I would say, when I coach a lot of senior leaders, some can just use a positional authority and bulldoze their way in. Unfortunately, that's a very poor example of persuading because you just have positional power. But it's an acquired art. Some of us are instinctively good at it. Some of us can acquire it. It requires a lot more thoughtfulness of what are some things we need to do.
Two questions. One is from one when you are taking an interview and one you are giving an interview.
Yeah.
What do you keep in mind to understand, because that's a very, very important skill.
Sure.
So what do you keep in mind while taking an interview and while giving an interview? That how do we judge that quality?
How do you persuade me to hire you?
So as an interviewee, now we're getting into different things. So let's again talk about ethos, logos, pathos. So if we're talking specific about an interview, understanding what are the needs of the organization. So the logos, that am I understanding what are the requirements, and therefore that requires me to do my homework of what is a job, what is the requirements. Two, then talking about ethos, what is it that I bring to the table which will meet the need of the organization so that I can accordingly talk about it. How do I make myself personal credibility at, when we talk about ethos? So, ability to come across as warm and likable, and that would hold true not only in interview but otherwise. Ability to weave in my expertise, so therefore establishing myself as an expert without blowing my trumpet, right? So that's 2. So these are specific to interviews. Then the pathos piece that we were talking about. So can I give examples from my professional life which also talk about or support why I should be suited for the role? So all the 3 things have to go.
But you said the emotional connect. Now, how do I make sure that I'm connecting? Because you said that was the most important part of it.
So I would recommend that what is how do we become effective storytellers? And we can narrate a story about ourselves or a situation in less than 2 minutes. So for example, the reason why I became, started my own firm 8 years back was because I found myself sitting alone in the steps of Times Square. I had just got separated. I was a single breadwinner, and my boss told me I'm not doing a great job. And that sense of what do I do? And I was 44 at that time. How do I find a job? And on that flight back, it made me think that I want to work for myself. So what have I done right now?
You've created a story, you've captured me, you've got me emotionally engaged.
So ability to, as in a story, is it a protagonist? You could be a protagonist, or it could be somebody else. Is there a tension point? Is there a lesson learned? And how do you take it back to your life? So we can use the technique of storytelling in a very interesting way when you're talking about pathos specifically.
So the credibility also comes as a package, because if you're talking about your story 8 years back,
right.
What if you were not rising from that 8-year journey?
Right.
Then your credibility was not there. So even if
Right.
you tell a very beautiful story, but there's nothing that.
So the objective?
Yeah.
Thank you. What is the objective of narrating the story? Now here I could have said, so I did not do well, and this is what my failure has taught me about being resilient. Let's say if I were to go and apply for a job. So how do I then package the story which is meeting the needs or the objective of why I'm narrating? It can't be, we're talking about point A and I talk about a story which is point D.
Now tell me now, okay, a lot of the listeners are thinking, okay, I understood ethos, pathos and legos, but how do I have to just go out and practice? How do I know I'm actually doing a good job? Because the other person doesn't tell me I'm persuading them. I don't get that feedback. Or what is the feedback I should watch for?
I would suggest,
and how long does it take?
I would suggest, and that's a very good question. You know, so the first 2 things. One is the art of self-reflection, reflecting a little bit in your day-to-day interactions. Were you able to take people along? And it surprises me how little we actually self-reflect. 2, if you have a trusted circle of advisors, friends, ask them, take feedback. That how do I come across? What are the things I need to improve, you think? Like an interview. And get some thoughts. So it's like a 360 that you're getting. And identify areas of improvement.
So this is an ongoing.
Oh, absolutely. So just to give you an example, I teach this particular course for MBA students. I teach this in a very nuanced way, not teach, but I talk about it when I'm doing my workshops for CEOs. So I think across any layer of organizations, and if I were to look at my life as a mother,
oh God, it's the biggest. With an 8-year-old, it will test your persuasion to the core.
I know. Ask me.
I have a 23 and an 18-year-old. So the nuances of persuasion have to change a lot. But you're using it every day with tough in-laws, with friends. I would say this is something which.
I like what you said. I think in one of our previous sessions, it's a skill. And these are the skills that we all need to learn, because being persuasive actually in the business world, that's when you're a good communicator, because I could be telling you everything. But at the end of the day, if I'm not able to convince you or persuade you or take you along, I've just spoken maybe in a one-way
And
dialogue.
why professional? It's everywhere. As you
personally.
said, being a mother, being in any situation in life.
So what it also helps you do is, I understand where you're coming from. First, I'm trying to understand before I start pitching my ideas. So the act of listening
Is very
itself becomes such a powerful way to get people along.
Awesome. Well, I hope these tips will help you. We will give you the article that Shymali's just done, and I'm sure that you will do a lot of self-reflection.
Thank you.
you.